themselves.
And this is why Plan for This is not just for people with money and are aging. Again, you never know. You and your spouse are driving down the road. You have children. You don't know. I mean, God forbid there's an accident. I mean, but there are accidents, and Plan for This is addressing those. So we ask you to subscribe. We ask you to share as much as you can, because everyone knows someone who will benefit and unburden themselves by planning for this.
Did you plan for this, or did you miss? When life demands answers you can't dismiss, will you be ready when the trumpet blows? Do you have the blueprint for life's unknowns?
Welcome back to Plan for This. Real people, real stories, and real solutions. And as you listen to this case study, please subscribe below and like what you hear. Marguerite, this next story is really packed with a lot of good information. And before you read it, I just have to say, this is so pertinent and so relevant. I have very dear friends. They're in their 80s. And they're still bicycling around Europe.
Oh, good for them.
So this story resonates. This story means a lot.
It does. It does. Well, yes, we'll get to it. And let's go. Lost in Paris. Bill is 57. He's single, divorced with 3 adult children. His kids have kids, and they are all often too busy to visit. So Bill frequently visits his own parents' house for company and to water the garden. His parents, Willa and Ted, made plans to visit Europe, even inviting Bill along, which he declined. Bill agreed to pick them up from the airport on their return, but they never arrived. He learned that they had not checked into their flights and hopped onto a flight himself to locate them. Bill didn't know their taxi had been T-boned just blocks from the airport in Paris, and Ted had been hospitalized. Willa suffered minor head trauma and lost their shared cell phone in the accident. It took 5 days, starting at their last hotel, before Bill was able to find them again in person. Ted now needed a wheelchair, and although Willa walked on her own just fine, she seemed spacey to Bill, as she had so much difficulty signing the discharge paperwork. Bill tried to be the one to sign, but he quickly found out that he did not have the authority to sign for her, and so spent the next hour painfully guiding her through every sentence and signature. They made it home, or rather the airport they meant to meet at the week prior, and exhausted, Bill, now the only one of the trio not on wheels, saw his parents home and crashed in the guest bed. In the morning, he set up shop in Ted's office, collecting documents as he went. In a long conversation with a family attorney, Bill discovered that the one who did have authority over his parents' affairs was a stranger, a professional whose name he did not recognize.
How do you think Bill reacted to that?
Oh, I don't think he liked it at all. I think in the telling of this story, I think Bill thought he was going to be the responsible one. I mean, good for him getting on an airplane to go find his folks, right? But then you get back and find out they have a plan. You just didn't know about it.
So when you say a professional whose name he did not recognize, what do you think that means?
Well, likely a professional trustee. I'm going to make some presumptions about this so we can talk about it. I'm going to assume that Willa and Ted have some money. They own their own home. They're able to travel, right? So that tells me they have a little extra to spend. And maybe Ted was a professional of some kind and had a home office, which is where Bill sits now as he discovers this. And he's on the phone with the family attorney, which could be the business law attorney who's also done the estate plan, or vice versa. We don't know. And finds out that he doesn't have control. Does he notify the person? Does the attorney notify the trustee who has control? That's another whole other.
Well, again, the attorney he had a long conversation with the family attorney, so the attorney should set something in motion.
Well, maybe. I mean, have Willa and Ted lost the capacity to manage for themselves? That's a big question. And normally in the estate planning documents, there's going to be some language about how is that determined? Who decides? that Willa and Ted are no longer able to manage their own affairs. What language is there? Is it two physicians that need to examine them? Is Bill really going to be willing and open to taking them to the doctors that say they don't have capacity? That's a challenge.
Well, also, we throw one more in the wrench, in the monkey in the wrench, is that professional both overseeing financial and healthcare?
Well, right now, the way we read this story is that in a long conversation with the family attorney, Bill discovered that the one who did have authority over his parents' affairs was a stranger, a professional whose name he did not recognize. So I don't know what document he's looking at. Maybe it's the trust. Maybe it's the will for each Willa and Ted. I mean, if they got this done as a whole estate plan, then there's the trust and that they share. They're probably both trustors of the trust, and they're both trustees of the trust.
Right. The family trust.
Right. The family trust. Let me explain that a little bit more, right? Trustor is like employer. Trustor is the one who created the trust. So you can say settlor, grantor, creator, writer.
The OR. Well,
right.
OR or ER.
But that's the one who created the trust in the first place. And you'll always be the trustor of your own trust. You created it. It's about you. You're actually the first beneficiary of your own trust. Okay. And then you have a trustee. So think trustor, employer, trustee, employee. Somebody has to do the work, for instance, to make sure the house is titled in the name of the trust and maybe organize the assets, right? So that's the trustee's job. Well, maybe Ted still has some capacity. Maybe Willa's the one who still has some capacity, but not both of them. One of them is the trustee right now and may have to get doctor's
Just
letters.
to clarify, before they went on the trip, they were both trustees
Right.
over the trust.
Right.
Now we've had an accident.
Something
One
happened.
may not have capacity. Now we're looking, what do we do?
Right. And I think one of the most important things to take away from this is that capacity is really what we're talking about. Who is the one who's capable? Who's the decision maker? Because in every life, there's a decision maker. Today, I feel good. I'm clear. At least I hope I am. And I am managing my own affairs. That's part of having capacity. What happens if I fall down and hit my head? Well, I have an estate plan, but somebody still has to get me to those physicians to get me examined. So we have doctor's letters. So nothing happens. Nothing changes. Bills can't be paid. New trustee's name is not going to go on title until we have those doctor's letters. So who is going to do that is part of the question. So the attorney now has been made aware that things have changed for Willa and Ted. The attorney might have some obligations to contact and let the trustee who's been listed know that they may be on.
So again, just the trustee is basically like a new employee of this trust who is a third party independent trustee, not a family member. And that Bill just found out about it. His parents didn't feel comfortable telling him ahead of time speaks volumes.
It does. And if I were Bill, I might want to look up that trustee, Google their name, find out if they're licensed. Now, California and Arizona are the only states that have licensing for their professional trustees.
As we're doing this podcast.
That's right, as of this time. And it's possible other states might want to license the people who become responsible for everything. We'll see if that happens. There are plenty of attorneys who also serve as trustee. A lot of CPAs do that too. Bill doesn't know this person, doesn't recognize their name, doesn't know how his parents might have met them. Maybe they were introduced by the attorney. He feels left out of the conversation. And he just came back from making this huge effort to make sure that they were safe. So he might have some big feelings about this. And that's real. Family members have feelings. But I do recommend taking a look and seeing if that person is licensed. See if there's been any
qualifications.
Right. See if there's been any disciplinary action. See if they have a website. Bill may not be the one willing to contact that person at this stage. He may be really interested in making sure Ted and Willa feel good. And he might want to campaign and see if they'll trust him to be their trustee. They may have reasons why they didn't select him.
Well, again, if they lack capacity, they're not in a position to change the new employee, the new trustee.
Right. And now that Bill has shared with the attorney that they may not have capacity right now, the attorney might suggest that Bill take them to a doctor to affirm they do have capacity or affirm that they do not.
So if Ted claims he has capacity and he can say, no, I am not relinquishing my role as employee of my trust or my trustee of my own trust to this independent person. So there can be conflict of
Sure.
giving up the role.
Well, Ted and Willa certainly have the right to change their mind if they have a mind to change. And that's a big challenge. And that's part of why estate planning is so complex. And it's another reason why a lot of people avoid it, because they're going to have to decide, maybe hurt somebody's feelings, maybe have an uncomfortable conversation because the person who assumed he would have the job doesn't have the job. And I know that's scary.
So do you think you have the job?
If you think you do have the job, you might want to visit trusteealliance.com, our nonprofit sponsor. It's an association of independent trustees. And there's so much to learn about serving as trustee and about this transition. And you want to, if you're going to do the job, do it well, do your best. And you might need some training to do that. We also have some books available on planforthis.com. But I'm really interested in your comments. Do you think you're named as your parents' trustee? Would you please comment below and let us know about that? We're super interested.
We'd love to also, what do you think that job entails?
Does it entail going to Paris to find your lost parents? Maybe.
Do you have time to fly to Paris and find your parents?
Whew. If my dad was alive, I would certainly make the flight and go find him.
So going back to this is so interesting of a case because, whether they flew to Paris or they're just living at home, that made it interesting that he flew to Paris. But it's also just as interesting as I just show up at my parents' house one day and I'm seeing the home I see my parents still in their pajamas at 2 p.m. I see a milk carton in the refrigerator that's dated a month old. And then I find out I'm not the one who's going to have any power over this. Is that a common thread?
I don't know how common it is, but I would say that for some adult children, it's a relief. It's a relief because they know their parents haven't really been doing their tax returns properly for a few years. Guess what? The new fiduciary becomes responsible for catching up on that stuff. There may have been other issues with other assets, things that have been lost, things that have been found. The organizing of all that becomes the duty of the person who becomes the trustee.
And a lot of these terms, planforthis.com, fiduciary, I think we keep saying that over and over again. I want to make sure people understand. We hear it a lot on commercials for different financial wealth management firms. What does it mean in your role as a trustee?
So in my role, the word fiduciary, whose root word is fi, and you may have heard the term semper fi, that means always loyal. So when we talk about a fiduciary, to whom is that fiduciary loyal? Well, in my case, as a professional trustee and executor, it's the clients who put my name in their estate plan documents to eventually serve. I'm typically named as a successor trustee. So the current trustee has the job. The trustor gets to select whoever they want to serve in that role, and they make a list. Maybe it's 3 deep, maybe it's 4 deep. These individuals are the people that I selected, and each individual would have the right to say, not me, I'm retired myself, or I'm not well, I can't do it, I'm not available, right? There's no slavery in fiduciary work. But that fiduciary, that one who becomes loyal, now has a duty of loyalty to the trustors who created the trust. And they also have a duty of loyalty to the beneficiaries, the ones who benefit from the trust. And when I say trust, I'm including the other estate plan documents in my mind. So let's talk about that just a little bit. So we have the trust. Each member of the couple has their own will. Each has their own durable power of attorney. Durable just means that it goes past their incapacity. It means that while they're alive, someone's going to deal with their assets that are personal to them. Their Social Security payments, their IRA, the things that are not titled in the name of the trust, but are personal to that person. And then they have the Advanced Healthcare Directive. Typically, spouses name each other as the first executor on the will, the first agent under the power of attorney for finance, the first agent under the Advanced Healthcare Directive. But they might have professionals after the spouse, because what if you're both in the same accident? What if both of you are not able to manage on your own or together? You know, my dad used to joke that he and his wife, it took both of them to get out of the house. So I think that's starting to happen for me and my husband, right? So yeah, capacity is part of what we're talking about, but we're also talking about the documents themselves.
And this is why Plan for This is not just for people with money and are aging. Again, you never know. You and your spouse are driving down the road. You have children. You don't know. I mean, God forbid there's an accident. I mean, but there are accidents, and Plan for This is addressing those. So we ask you to subscribe. We ask you to share as much as you can, because everyone knows someone who will benefit and unburden themselves by planning for this.
Yeah, this is a good one. And we could probably talk about this for much longer, especially because, Bill probably realized that he hasn't talked to his own children about his own needs. His parents didn't talk to him. So what's Bill going to do? He's divorced. So his spouse is not in the picture. And by the way, for anybody who's gotten divorced, you should do your estate plan immediately after your divorce is done. Why? Because your spouse is probably listed in certain places to be your person. And
yeah, this triggers a lot of other podcasts. I mean, we're talking about co-trustee in that situation, and there's just maybe a lot of times Bill and the fiduciary could be named together.
Ooh, I personally have chosen not to co-trustee, because that's like putting two steering wheels on the same car. I mean, the trust administration, we use the word administration when we expect there to be a final say, where the buck stops, right? The buck stops here. The idea is that there's a final decision maker to decide on how things are going to go. And when you have co-trustees, each one is 100% responsible for what happens in the trust, whether they know about it or not. So banks don't really love that arrangement. They want two signatures on every check, because they don't want to be caught in the middle of, well, I thought you paid it. Well, no, I thought you paid it. Co-trusteeship has its own challenges.
Viewers, listeners, we welcome you to submit your story with great detail, planforthis.com, and we will read it and review it and try to answer those questions as we grow with these podcasts.
Yes. And please comment below if you've got something to add to this conversation. I'm really hopeful of building community. We want to know if you feel this affects you. There's so many people who avoid the conversation about estate planning, but you can see in this particular case, it was really great that they have a plan and they had someone who came to rescue them. And look at the trouble Willa had filling out the documents or being able to sign the discharge papers. That's real. That happens for people. So we're hoping that you plan for this. Independent Trustee Alliance is a proud nonprofit sponsor of Plan for This. If you are considering serving as a trustee, please visit trusteealliance.com to learn more about this complex and sometimes overwhelming job. trusteealliance.com. Plan for This thanks the Estate Sale Warehouse for all their amazing service and support. Entire home cleanouts, inventory, appraisal, auctions, sale of fine art and classic cars. Learn more at estatesalewarehouse.com.
Up next is our PlanFan question. If you would like to submit your story to us, go to planforthis.com. So Marguerite, this question goes, Hi, Marguerite and Ron. My father recently passed away. The house is under his name, and there is still a mortgage to be paid. There was no will trust, but my siblings and I still live there and have nowhere to go.
Oh.
We would like to take over the mortgage payments, which we can definitely afford. What options do I have to keep the lender from foreclosing?
Wow, that's a loaded question, isn't it? My first impulse is to contact an estate planning attorney as opposed to a business law attorney or a real estate attorney. But any of them, we're going to direct you back to someone who understands about probate. So, probate is the court procedure by which assets are transferred in ownership, meaning your dad, and so I'm so sorry for your loss. Your dad passed and there's still a mortgage on the house. So the house is in his name. The mortgage is in his name. The utility bills probably are. The car probably is. So there's a lot of things that your dad had there in his name alone. Someone is going to have the job of organizing all of that information, presenting it in court to then transfer ownership. And one of the questions might be, would all three siblings then own the house together? And there may be some other agreement that's required because we're familiar with real estate, right, Ron? Like I'm thinking about a tenants in common agreement or some kind of joint tenancy arrangement. What happens when one of the siblings dies? Are they going to live there the rest of their life? Who's responsible for selling the house when that comes? So there's a lot here that would need to be worked out. Some of it would be through the probate court. Some of it would be among the siblings. But you really, really need to contact an attorney.
Well, there's so much packed in here. I mean, if they are able to take over the property, there's what happens one gets married, what happens one wants to move. I mean, they're really forming a partnership amongst my siblings. So there's at least three people here.
Right.
So three people are forming a partnership to live in a home. Talk about needing an estate plan. Then those three people, the what ifs of that situation are off the charts.
I'm thinking even that maybe the eldest sibling's 21, but the youngest sibling is 16.
We don't know.
A 16-year-old, a minor child, doesn't get to sign in on an agreement like that, right?
Right. So if your older brother or older sister is taking ownership, but you want to divide things up equally, what happens down the road? So the issue of there's property tax, there's so much going on here. You really need to get to an attorney to understand your situation. Now, again, just to throw something else into it that says it's still a mortgage to be paid. God forbid there's a reverse mortgage on this.
Oh, yeah. Say more about that.
Well, if there's a reverse mortgage on this property, they are going, and obviously the reverse mortgage company, not obviously, but eventually they find, if you're going through the probate process, they are going to find out that there's the reverse mortgage company finds out that your father passed away. And then they are going to start to get kind of nasty with you. They are going to want this reverse mortgage paid off within 90 to 120 days, which means can you qualify to if you want to stay in the home rather than sell the home, can you qualify to refinance the house?
Right. And you could try just living at the house and not telling anyone what happened. You could try, but that doesn't last very long because then the property tax bill does show up. There's your father's final tax return that has to be filed. And if those taxes are not paid, then there's penalties that accrue, so this only gets worse without getting professional help. And I'm sorry that it could be so uncomfortable, but once you work with an attorney and you figure out the next steps, maybe one of the siblings takes the lead. Maybe you do come to the decision that it's time to sell the house, to pay off the creditors, to pay off the mortgage, and so on. And then very likely each of you as siblings would inherit from your dad your fair portion. That's part of what the probate court procedure is all about, is to see what there is and then to kind of figure out and devise how to move it along. A dead person really doesn't have rights anymore on one side. On the other hand, if your dad had written an estate plan and actually had thought about what might happen if he's not able to pay off the mortgage, knowing that you guys live there, it would have been so much easier and so much smoother, and the court wouldn't be necessary. And the attorney would still need to be contacted because there would still be certain things to do, but someone would have been selected and granted the authority to do the work. So that's another reason why we really want people to think about that. If you have high school, elementary school, junior high school, college age kids, and they're in and out of your home, that really matters to them. They need that stability. They need that safe place. And frankly, you need to create a plan so that they're okay if you're not okay. Planforthis.com.
Subscribe.
You through life's
See you there.
uncertainty.